Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, hold on. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome in. Podcast to be named later is live and going. What did we decide on the name last week? I already forgot.
Life in the Red podcast.
Life in the Red podcast. There it is. I'm a professional podcast host over here. Unofficially episode 2 of the Life in the Red podcast, tentatively. It's game week. It is Wednesday, August 25th, 2021. The time is 2:19 p.m. We are 3 days away. It'll be in the third quarter this time Saturday, probably. Who knows what the mood around Nebraska football will be at 2:19 p.m. on Saturday, but that's what we're here to talk about.
Different than it is right now.
Different than it is right now, almost certainly. And that's what we're here to talk about. We're going to do a little season setup. We're going to give some predictions, just on some various topics. We'll obviously predict the game score at the end like we've done in the previous years. So, I think we just get right into it. Sip, you brought this up before we got started. You're interested in some individual predictions. Who are Nebraska's top 3 receivers going to be? Who's going to start at running back? Who's going to lead Nebraska in sacks this year? So I think we all three kind of have our ideas. I'll turn it over if one of you guys wants to go first, or I can go first too.
Simple, yes. Lead it off.
Okay, so who's starting the game at running back?
Yeah, who's the starting running back Saturday?
Yeah, listen. If someone knows this, I'd like to shake their hand. I can't say that I know. I'm going with what I perceive to be the guy who had the hot hand late in camp or in the most recent days of camp, and that is Sevion Morrison. But I can't say it with much certainty or any certainty at all.
You said it with some verve.
I'm just going on what coaches have said recently. And they've been he's definitely made a charge in camp. So I'm going with Sevion Morrison.
All right. This is good because I got somebody different. I'm going with Gabe Ervin.
Okay.
That. We heard Matt Lubick yesterday talk about they want to find a guy that they can get to 20 to 26 times a game. Gabe Ervin's physical profile certainly would fit that. He doesn't have the injury history that Marquise Stepp has at the college level, obviously because he's a freshman. So if you want a bell cow and you're looking at those top 3 guys, I don't know. That's just the name that jumps out to me. So I'm going to take Gabe Ervin to get that first handoff on Saturday.
All right.
I resigned myself to my fate here being in the 3-hole on this one, that I would just say the same thing that both of you guys said. But instead, I'm going to be the only one to make the logical choice, which is Marquise Stepp. And wow. I think you can. I'm very interested. I'm not calling either of you illogical. I'm just saying I feel like
How about that, Baz? He takes a shot at us. That's
We're
amazing.
3 minutes into the podcast. He's already calling, saying, "Oh, I'll be the logical."
The disparagement's high. Just wait till we're in the car on Friday.
Oh my God. Anyway,
now why are you saying Stepp? Why are you saying Stepp?
Well, because when Marquise Stepp got here in January, which admittedly is a long time ago now in the race to win the starting job, Nebraska recruited him and was happy to land him because they wanted somebody with some upper level college experience, and they wanted someone who they could rely on or sort of project to be the guy in the backfield. And that process of becoming that player hit a speed bump for Marquise Stepp when he had to drop out on the second day of spring ball and have surgery on his toe. But he's come back healthier than they thought he would through camp. By all accounts, he's had a productive camp. He's 6'1" and 235, and he's got the most college production out of any of those guys. So when push comes to shove and the offense trots out onto the field in a game, we're going to talk about this, it's got a lot of pressure on it right from the jump. I just think they're going to go to a guy who averaged 5 yards a carry at USC to get the first chance in the backfield.
All right. Well, that's good. We all picked someone different, which is, I think, is fitting. I think it's fitting because I think it's a huge question mark that not many people know. So what's number 2, Baz?
Number 2. Let's go. We'll switch it up. Let's go to the defense. Who's going to lead Nebraska in sacks this season? Who's going to
I went first last time, so I'll go last.
Okay, Parker, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a tough one. This is a really tough one. About 4 different players came to my mind. I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path, perhaps here, and I'm going to resist the temptation to pick an outside linebacker or even a defensive lineman, and I'm going to say Luke Reimer. I just think
Sorry?
I'm going to say Luke Reimer, the inside linebacker.
Luke Reimer, okay.
From Lincoln North Star, right up the road from the Scooters at 27th and Superior.
That's where I'm stationed live.
You could throw the pigskin and land it on the field where Luke Reimer came to.
Somebody could, not me.
The reason I say that is because I think Nebraska's got a bunch of 3 and maybe 4 sack type of guys on the roster. I don't know that they have a dynamite pass rusher, and I think Luke Reimer might be the most naturally explosive player that they have in the front 7. Now, it could be Ty Robinson, it could be Feldarius Payne, it could be a lot of different guys. I'm interested to see who you guys pick, but push comes to shove, I think we've seen Luke Reimer as a natural playmaker. Barrett Ruud said the thing he does most naturally is get toward the quarterback in the backfield, and I think 5.5 or 6 sacks over the course of a season might be enough to lead the team.
I was actually of a similar thought process as you, Parker. I was going to say Luke Reimer until you said it, so I'm going to go a different direction. He was one of the 3 guys I thought of, along with JoJo Domann and Feldarius Payne. I'll pick Feldarius Payne just to pick one. I like his size at the outside linebacker spot to be a pass rusher, to be able to take on offensive linemen. I like his motor quite a bit. I think that's a guy that's ready to make an impact on this team. Give me Feldarius Payne, but I think Luke Reimer's right up there as well. And JoJo Domann for kind of the same reason. Knows for the football, knows how to make plays, kind of an explosive guy. So it could be any one of those 3. I'm kind of hedging my bets here, but at the end of the day, I'll take Feldarius Payne just because I like his size.
JoJo Domann had 0 sacks last year, and the reason JoJo won't get a lot of sacks is because he's often not at the line of scrimmage in passing situations. He'll be covering a slot guy a lot of the time. I agree that if they wanted to get JoJo 6 sacks, I think they could maybe. I like the way you guys are thinking, but I think there's an obvious guy that you could leave out, and that's Caleb Tanner. Now, Caleb Tanner has 3.5 sacks in his career, I believe. That's it. And that wasn't what anybody expected from him. He's still not big enough, in my opinion. He still has to rely way too much on quickness rather than power. They don't have a power rusher per se on the edge. You know what I'm talking about? Like a guy that can push a tackle into the backfield and stick his long arm out, grab a quarterback by the jersey and tear him down or tear the ball out. They don't have that guy.
Island.
But Tanner, okay, he got a black shirt. That's a good sign. Tanner is explosive. Again, he has to rely probably too much on his speed, but I do think he could get you 5 or 6 sacks. I think he's reached that point of his career where he's probably got a high prove-it mentality. He's obviously playing at a pretty high level, or they wouldn't give him a black shirt, because they weren't giving out black shirts like M&M's the other day. So I like Tanner, but I don't think you're going to see a guy get 9 sacks for Nebraska this year. I think what they, I was looking in 2016, that team, the last Nebraska team that had any kind of season, really, a 9-4 team, had 26 sacks, which that's like 50th nationally or 60th nationally. I think they should be able to get there, but it's going to be with guys getting 5 and 6 apiece. I don't see anybody racking up a big number.
That season, Sipple, 2016, that's one of only 3 times since Nebraska joined the Big Ten that they've averaged 2 sacks a game in conference play. So, it's been an area where it's struggled, and I think our group's collective set of answers here all but ensures that either Ben Stille or Ty Robinson will lead the team in sacks by the end of the year.
Right. Yeah. All right, we'll make one more personnel prediction here. We're going to go, who do we think Nebraska's top 3 receivers will be. Now, we need to clarify this. Are we saying the 3 guys that are going to start the game on Saturday, or are we saying the top 3 guys in receptions at the end of the year?
See you, Rick. Have a good one.
Hey,
All
see you, Rick.
Nice seeing you.
Have a good one.
See you, Rick.
Nice seeing you. Now, here's the deal. No, I'm saying top 3 receivers at the end of the season, not necessarily the starters.
Okay. All right.
Let's do both. Why not? Let's do both.
My 3 might actually be the same for both counts. So how about I go first?
Great.
I'll take give me Samori Toure. I think that's probably an obvious one. Give me Oliver Martin and give me Xavier Betts. We've heard a lot of really good stuff about all 3 of those guys this year. Samori Toure, I think, will lead Nebraska in receiving when it's all said and done. I think he's really good. And coming from FCS, he's got great size. They're going to put him in the slot. He's going to be able to run past, potentially a safety or a linebacker that gets out there. He's got the size to go up and get a ball. I like him. Oliver Martin, as we well know by now, has had some of the best testing numbers on the team. He's experienced in the Big Ten, great athlete. And Xavier Betts kind of seems like he's figuring it out. And when he came up, and that's been one of the best interviews we've had all years, is when he came up and talked about how he kind of needed to figure it out after the spring. And it seems like he's starting to do that because we've heard really good things about him. So when it's all said and done, I think those 3 guys are the guys that are going to be at the top of Nebraska's receiving chart at the end of the season.
Who's up next here?
I'll go. I'll take, similar, Baz. I'll take Toure, Martin, and Austin Allen. I think Austin Allen's got a chance to be involved in the passing game. I think they want the tight ends to be more involved in the receiving game. Allen's been he hasn't put up huge numbers catch-wise in his career, but he's already shown he's a big play threat. They can get him vertical. They have ways to get him in matchups and to get him in space. And so I think you'll see him have a big year. I was tempted to pick Betts as my 3rd because I think he's got a chance to really break out. It wouldn't surprise me if he comes on strong. But yeah, I'll take Samori Toure, Oliver Martin, and Austin Allen. And if you're asking me with Martin and Toure, who I think the 3rd starting receiver will be, assuming that they have 3 starters at wide receiver, I'll take narrowly over Xavier Betts. I'll take Wyatt Lever. I think Wyatt Lever, I'm not saying that Wyatt Lever is going to be Randy Moss, but I think that he goes a little bit under talked about in this group. And last year, I totally understand, last year, he wasn't a big threat in the passing game. He worked his way up in part because they didn't have a lot of depth, but the kid is really athletic. You hate to put the term sneaky athletic on him, but he's
You do. You really do.
You really hate to.
Why would you put that term on?
But he's 6'4". He's got the program record in the pro agility drill, or he would have tied the program record if it weren't for Deontay Williams. And he's a guy that they trust. And so I think the combination of the size, the athletic package, and then the experience he got last year, I think he's going to play a lot for Nebraska this year.
I think that's a great name to throw in there. Now, in the interest of brevity here, I don't have to expand too much because I'm picking exactly the 3 that Parker picked in the exact order. Samori Toure. We each picked Samori Toure number 1, which is interesting in itself. I'll go Oliver Martin 2nd and Austin Allen 3rd for many of the reasons that Parker outlined. I just add one thing. Toure is really interesting, a very interesting addition to the team because they embraced him right away. The team did. He's obviously he seems like he must be a good team guy because the guys gravitated to him right away. And I think Adrian will gravitate his way a lot.
You can, so if you want a good story about Samori Toure, Sipple, you can check journalstar.com/Huskers in about 27 minutes.
Right.
Who's writing that?
It might be already
story?
posted. It might be already
Parker
posted.
wrote that baby up.
All right. I will. Now, he's interesting because he's a 6'3" slot. That's also interesting. It's interesting to me what Frost said in Indianapolis, which they won't use him out of the backfield. He kind of said that. He just volunteered it. I just found that interesting. They're going to throw to him a lot, and I think we're right on that. He'll be the leading receiver.
Wait, he said they're not going to use him out of the backfield?
Yeah.
They motioned him
He
into the
said he-
backfield like 4 times during the spring game.
Well, they won't hand the ball to him, though.
Yeah, right. Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he's not going to run the ball like Wandale.
That'd be
All
interesting.
right.
That'd be an interesting sight.
6'3" guy getting handoffs after we've heard all this talk about the running
Getting split in half by somebody, that would be an
Yeah.
interesting.
That would certainly be an interesting sight, wouldn't it? If he was split in half by an opposing defender. All
That
right.
would cause a pause in the game.
Yeah. Well, let's move on here. We gave those 3 predictions. We'll give our predictions on Saturday's game at the end of this podcast. Let's try and set this season up a little bit. And I guess what I mean by that is, expectations is a word that gets thrown around a lot. But I guess what are maybe a couple things you guys are interested in seeing, not only Saturday, but just as the year goes on, like what do you want to see out of this team? What are maybe a couple things that you think this team can do that maybe it hasn't done under Scott Frost yet? And what maybe is going to make this team different from Scott Frost's first 3 teams in Nebraska?
Well, the thing you're looking for right away is, as Parker pointed out in the story over the weekend, in the last 2 games against Illinois, they're -8 in the turnover category. They were -5 last year, which, I mean, just, I don't even know what to say. I mean, you're -5 turnovers against Illinois. You can't, that's just, if they're -5 on Saturday, there won't be a sellout at Memorial Stadium for Fordham. Because people they'll grow tired of that. So that's the thing I'm looking for right away. I mean, I think you got to look at the turnover ledger. That's one of the first things I'll look at the end of that game.
The thing I'm interested in is, and this is probably another right away type of scenario, is how do they handle adversity? You saw that that was a little bit up and down last year. I mean, you saw them handle it well at times. We've seen moments in Scott Frost's tenure, moments where adversity's been handled well on the field. The 4th quarter against Michigan State in the snow. Last year against Penn State, when they jumped out big, Penn State started marching back in the second half. And even though the momentum really went to Penn State's way in the second half, the defense stood up and won them a game in the red zone at the end of that game. So there's been moments, but I think you're interested in how adversity gets handled on a regular basis, which you're just going to face, especially, in the Big Ten, and especially with a schedule like this one. Related to that, games that come down to one score, they're 5-12, 5-13 under Scott.
5-11,
5-11 in one score games, and so that to me that's a major factor. I mean, you're just going to have a bunch of those in Big Ten play, and frankly, you wouldn't be that surprised if Saturday's one of them. And so what is it going to look like when you get in? Can they play free and easy, especially on offense?
Not only that, how do they handle Prosperity? I mean, they didn't handle Prosperity last year. When they beat Penn State, Frost said they took their foot off the gas. It's unbelievable to me. But how do they handle it if they win the game? That's another thing to look at.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same beat as you guys, and it's how does Adrian Martinez kind of lead this team with his play on the field? And you mentioned handling Prosperity, handling the tough times. How many times have we seen Adrian Martinez try to win a game by himself? And that leads to turnovers. Now it leads to the turnover margin issue, and that maybe leads to some tight play in the 4th quarter or whatever. But I think a lot of those things go back. Excuse Palmer giving his opinion in the background here. I think like those things. Yeah, Palmer's also interested in what Adrian does this year, but they're going to go as he goes. I think it comes down to that. The dude came back for a 4th year. We've heard ad nauseum. He's better. He's trimmer. He's in great shape. He's good placed mentally. Yada yada yada. If he is all those things, then Nebraska is going to be closer to reaching their full potential, because we all know he's the head of the snake, right? And yes, the defense needs to be good. Yes, the offensive line needs to be good. They need to find a running game, limit turnovers, clean up special teams. But if Adrian is really good this year, then Nebraska has a chance to be good. And if Adrian is not very good this year, then it's going to be really tough for Nebraska to be good. So how does Adrian handle it? when it's tough, maybe this Saturday when it's tough and they need a drive and they need him to make a play or they need him to have a teammate make a play, can he do it? And can he lead them when things are going well too? So that kind of ties into what you guys both said. It's if Adrian goes well, I think this team goes well.
I think so. One thing I think is going to be fascinating. One of the many reasons why this Illinois game is so interesting is we've heard a lot from coaches about what they think the temperament of this team is. There's more player leadership. It's a veteran group. They're confident. They have more, tools in the tool belt, so to speak. They're deeper. I think all of that is going to be put to the test pretty darn quickly on Saturday, Sipple, because let's face it, I don't know if Cam Taylor-Britt goes to bed at night wondering or thinking about pressure. He said at the beginning of camp that he didn't feel pressure, but there's pressure, right? I mean, there's pressure on this game in particular for Nebraska, and to get off to a good start this season and to get wind under the wings, as Scott Frost had said. And so if they come out, if Illinois hits them and goes up 7-0, or if it's 14-10 after a quarter or something like that, how are they going to respond? Are they just going to settle into the fight and say, okay, here it is, here's the challenge, let's go play? Or are they going to get tight? I mean, and whether it happens on Saturday or it happens against Oklahoma or Buffalo or Michigan State or whatever, it's going to happen at some point. I think you can tell a lot about the temperament of a team based on how they respond when the other team throws a punch. And I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois throws one, early. And so it's just, I'm fascinated by it, because you can talk about they're loose, they're relaxed. There's pressure on this game. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there's a lot on it. It's not a make or break. Eric Chinander said that yesterday. Doesn't like the term make or break, and I would agree with him. But that doesn't mean there's not pressure, because there's a lot of it.
This is a great segue, Parker, and this leads into something we talked about the other day before media availability. And I think we all agree, like you said, this game is important. May or may not be make or break. What if Nebraska loses this game Saturday? We've talked about the pressure, weight of the world on, Scott Frost's shoulders, Adrian Martinez, this defense, whatever it may be. What if Illinois goes up 10-0, 14-10, and Nebraska doesn't respond and they lose 31-28 or they lose 31-21 or whatever the score may be? They don't win is basically the point. What happens then? I think we all agree the next week will be a tire fire on several different fronts. But it's fascinating to me. And I'm not saying Nebraska is going to lose this game, but what if they do? What if they do lose this game?
It'll be very pleasant throughout the state. The mood will be wonderful.
Mood will be good.
Social media will be a bastion of calmness and perspective.
Yeah. There'll be there won't be anybody eviscerating anybody next week.
It's your word of the week this week, Sipple, is evisceration.
We've only been talking about the head coach's body language at a press conference for the last 2 weeks now, basically. So I can't imagine what a loss in an actual football game would look like.
The season will become very pleasant.
But it's interesting, right? Because you said, Sip, if they lose, Fordham's probably not a sellout the next week, and if it's mistake, especially if it's mistake-filled, if it looks like all the other losses under Scott Frost, oh boy, now you throw a potential ending of the sellout streak on top of that. You throw in, okay, you lose to Illinois, but you beat Fordham and Buffalo. Great. Now you're going to Oklahoma. Have you really built anything positive if you beat Fordham and Buffalo after losing to Illinois? I don't know, so it's a tone setter for sure. And the external pressure only ratchets up, right? We know there's pressure on Scott Frost, and whether that's, go ahead, Sip.
I'll tell you something interesting. It's just this, the state of affairs. But if you think about it, Nebraska is better off starting this season on the road.
Great, 100%.
I think that because of what you're saying, what you're suggesting, the scenario that you suggest, which is if they would get down early, which is very plausible because of new coach. That Illinois offense might have the upper hand early just because they can throw the unexpected at you a little bit, get you on your heels. Then how do you respond? In Memorial Stadium, if things would start going badly early, the players can literally hear the conversations in the stand.
Yeah.
And the stadium gets really tight. The players can feel that. They are better off, I think, on the road. And that's just, it's not an indictment on anybody. I think that's just the state of affairs right now.
You're right. They're better off on the road, and they're going to be in a stadium that probably isn't going to be full. Just talking to a couple people that cover the team out there.
Okay.
That they might have 30,000 there, and that stadium seats what, 60, 55,
Yep.
60, somewhere in there. So it might be half full, maybe a little more. So it's not going to be this suffocating. It's not going to be walking into the Horseshoe at night. It's not going to be walking into Michigan Stadium, in front of 110,000. It's not going to be that. But it is going to be on the road. There'll be a lot of Nebraska fans there, but it's going to be a road environment that's not necessarily a debilitating road environment where it's just tough to do anything there. So I think that helps Nebraska too, in that sense. But you're right, Steph. I think they're better off on the road in this game. It's this opener has been talked about so much, and you're talking about a game between two teams that basically have been the bottom two teams in the division, along with Purdue for the last couple of years, and we're talking about how massive this game is in the course of Nebraska's season. So yeah, it's so fascinating to me. And again, I'm not saying Nebraska's going to lose this game, but if they get down, can they respond? Or does it become, oh, well, here comes a 40-yard kickoff return from Illinois to keep the momentum going. Or here comes a long punt return. Or, oh, there's Adrian Martinez forcing one into double coverage and it's an interception. Is it turning into that same old stuff, or do we find out that Nebraska maybe really has turned a corner on some of that? So a lot of reasons for Nebraska to win this game, obviously, but boy, the thought of them not winning this game, it's almost more interesting than if they win it.
Don't you think that? But I was just going to say, it's interesting to say that, Baz, because the other interesting picture would be if Nebraska just comes out smoking, like that given the pressure and given the off season and given the stakes and all of that, like the other thing that would be really interesting is, 28-0, 5 minutes into the second quarter. And again, like probably also unlikely, but they've got a veteran defense and a defense that feels like it can play well. And if they come out and I just think the interesting part the other way is if they came out and stomped Illinois, because if that happens, there would be this question about like how quickly does all the other stuff go away?
Yeah.
And I think Sipple's point earlier about wanting to see them handle success is obviously would persist. And it's not like they can answer every question in 60 minutes on Saturday. But I would find it a very interesting study in what they feel like they've got in there if that team comes out more than ready to play and puts on a show. I just think either end of the spectrum would be kind of wild.
Boy, all I hear right now is it just is going to feel like every game almost, or every game, not even almost, is it's a referendum. It just feels like a big referendum season.
Yeah.
We're going to read a lot in. We're going to read in a lot. We're going to read into everything. And that's just the kind of season we're in. I've been through them. They're intense. I mean, it's easy to write columns, I guess, during referendum seasons, but it's not easy for head coaches.
Yeah. And one thing I'll say too, like we're talking about Illinois and it's going to be hard and they have a new coach. This team that still won 2 games and was terrible on defense last year and basically brings back all the guys from a lousy team last year. Yes, they beat Nebraska, and let's not forget that happened. I'm sure most fans probably haven't, but Illinois wasn't a great outfit, when Brett Bielema got there. There's a reason they have a new coaching staff this year, and it's because they haven't been very good in recent years, even if they have given Nebraska trouble. So, yeah, Parker said it. Like, what if Nebraska's up 28-0? They might go up and win that game by 3 scores or whatever, 4 scores, whatever it may be. And we go, oh, hey, they look pretty good, but then maybe you start to think about it in hindsight and all that. Well, Illinois is probably not very good, and I think that happens a lot with these games. We sometimes build these teams up, to be greater than they are, and of course you're not doing that with Ohio State. We know Ohio State's great, but even like the Iowa and Wisconsin games, it feels like we build Iowa and Wisconsin up to be these monoliths that are just impossible to conquer. And again, Nebraska hasn't beaten them, but Nebraska's been right there with Iowa the last few years. They've been right there in spurts with Wisconsin the last few years. So yeah, I mean, we might go up there, and Illinois might be lousy, and Nebraska might roll, and then it's a totally different discussion going into the next week. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. There's a lot of unknowns about it. That's what I think makes it so fun and so interesting.
Well, Nebraska's not going to get widespread credit for winning any of their first 3 games, which is sort of the interesting wrinkle in all of it. Is a loss in any of their first 3 games is a calamity. But if they start 3-0, it'll just be, oh, well, that's what they were supposed to do. That'll be the prevailing sentiment. And so I think the interesting thing is to take as much of a clear-eyed stock as you can of what do they do well and what don't they over the first 3 weeks, because that's the stuff that will be portable, whether it's in trying to hang with the exceptionally talented Oklahoma team or whether it's the Big Ten gauntlet that comes after that. But to me, like, of course, it's going to hit the fan if they lose against Illinois. But I think if they start 3-0, there's going to be some people who just say, oh, it doesn't matter. But it's like Sipple said, when, season like this, everything matters. I think, everything matters. And so that, it's the first, I mean, they play 8 straight weeks, right? We've got 8 straight Saturdays of football before a bye week in late October. So we're getting into that period where we're really going to learn a lot about what they
got to get my truck into the shop before then. Okay, should we do predictions?
Yeah, let's knock this baby out. We'll finish this baby up. First predictions of the new year for Saturday's game: Nebraska at Illinois, noon kickoff, big noon kickoff. Fox national game, only Power 5 versus Power 5 game on Saturday. The eyes of the nation will be upon Champaign, Illinois. When was the last? That probably hasn't happened since Red Grange was roaming the backfield.
Oh, come on, Mike White. Have you ever heard of Mike White?
Yes, I've heard of Mike White.
Juice Williams.
Anyway, yeah, Juice Williams. By the way, they're honoring their 2001 Big Ten championship team Saturday.
Hello.
There you go. So
what would you guys say if I just said I'm writing a column about that?
You're just going to write about Illinois' 2001 Big Ten championship team that couldn't go to the Rose Bowl, by the way, because the Rose Bowl was the national title game that year. And who was there? Nebraska, Miami.
Oh, wow.
You remember that game. I'll go first on the predictions. I'll give the top 2 football guys a little time to think about this. I think Nebraska wins. I think Illinois hits them early, like we talked about. I think Illinois maybe goes right down the field there at first drive, maybe those first 2 drives, and maybe they're up 10-7 or whatever it may be, 14-10. I think Nebraska finds itself. I think they adjust. I think their talent carries the day. I like their defense to kind of settle in against that offense. I think Nebraska ends up winning 31-21.
Say it again. You drowned out a little bit.
Nebraska 31, Illinois 21.
Okay. All right.
I'm in a very similar place. I hemmed and hawed about it, but I'm going to pick Nebraska. And I picked it at 30-24, which I think that would be under and Illinois covering.
That's right. I think it's Nebraska by 7 right now is the spread.
Yeah, it is. I'm picking the unders by 1 point. The over-under is 55. So I'm picking the unders by 1 point. What do you think my score is?
Under 55.
34-20.
Good guess. Not correct.
30-24, like Parker.
37-17.
Wow. A blowout.
3-score
game.
37-17 Illinois, huh?
No.
Wow, you're picking Illinois to win by 3 touchdowns. You heard it here first. Wow. Sipple's picking Illinois to win by 20.
I'm picking Nebraska to win mainly because I'm betting on 3 things. I'm betting on Adrian Martinez to have a career resurgence, we'll call it. I'm betting on the receivers to be much better than we've seen at Nebraska in a while as a collective. Throw those tight ends in there. And I'm betting on Chenander's defense to be a top 30 defense and to show it right away. So yeah, 37-17. This is a veteran defense. There's no reason that it can't come out of the gate strong.
Love it.
No reason.
No reason.
We are back, folks. We're piling into the car Friday afternoon, driving out to Champaign. We'll have you covered from every single possible angle. Make sure you check out journalstar.com/Huskers for all your Husker coverage from the guys, plus me. I'll even throw some stuff in there. My opponent scout's coming later this afternoon. But until then, we'll see you up in Champaign, and we'll talk to you next week on the pod.